Shabbat Shalom, friends. In 1991, during my first trip to Israel, I was with a small group of young would-be activists sponsored by the Jewish Federation of Los Angeles to visit Israel for the first time and see some of the work that the worldwide federations were doing. Among our experiences during those 10 days included going to Ben Gurion Airport very late at night, standing on the tarmac with small Israeli flags as an El Al plane arrived full of immigrants from the Soviet Union. Jews who had been behind the Iron Curtain for their entire lives, coming to Israel for the first time to be brought home. It's a lot of years ago. On that same trip, we visited a converted hotel that had once, I suppose, been a grand example of opulence and luxury, which was now a residential and acculturation center for Ethiopian Jews who had also more recently arrived to Israel through the efforts of Operation Solomon. You will probably remember, many of you, those images of Ethiopian Jews arriving in the early 90s. The State of Israel covertly airlifted more than 14,000 people from the Addis Ababa airport, miraculously enacting the ingathering of the exiles. I remember the faces of some of the Jewish people there. They looked shocked still, confused, uncertain, and yet there was a deep grace and beauty about each one of them that stays in my memory to this very day. I've spoken about the plight of the remaining Ethiopian Jews before, and I'm going to do that again this morning just for a few minutes, because there is so much on all of our shoulders, and the news is overwhelming from all sides. And the subject of immigration and so many others are such fraught and painful and hot to the touch. They're incendiary topics. But we have our own immigration issue in the Jewish world. And maybe it's one that we can largely agree upon to an extent. Something that might allow us to get out of ourselves and remember that there are people in far worse situations than ours who desperately want to come to the State of Israel, who want nothing more than to be welcomed home. Some of them have been separated from their families, in some cases for many, many years, even decades, who yearn to be brought home, as in Operation Solomon and earlier in the 80s in Operation Moses, to be brought to the Promised Land. We've just finished Passover, and the thought that there are Jews who yearn to be free from a dangerous place, yes, in Addis Ababa, but also in the more northern city of Gondor. There are so many thousands of Jewish people who at least half have matrilineal Jewish blood, many patrilineal, and some both. It's been a scene of confusion and chaos for many decades, because many of the remaining Jews in Ethiopia, and we think there are about 15,000, many of them had to undergo conversion to Christianity, probably in a forced way, as a result of missionary activity in the 19th and 20th centuries. We know for certain that many conversions were under duress or highly incentivized with food and education. But as a result, they are called Falash Mura, descendants of the Beta Israel, the Ethiopian forefathers who had converted largely against their will. So this is part of the difficulty in why Israel has been so incredibly slow, frustratingly so, when figuring out who has the right of return, who should come to Israel, who needs to be turned away. But because of it, thousands of people have sat for far, far, far too long. There are thousands of stories, and these communities are known for deep piety, for being very, very gifted in prayer. They daven in Hebrew and Amharic, a Semitic language of Ethiopia that is apparently very soft and soothing sounding. They use a Sefer Torah that we would absolutely recognize. They use a Koran Sidur, the Koran Sachs Sidur, beautiful modern Orthodox Sidur with translation to Amharic. And yet they do this in synagogues made from corrugated metal lined with tarp and cloths. There are mud floors that lead out to backyards with mikvahs, and they tend to have outhouses with no running water. At the synagogues in Addis Ababa and Gondar, mothers in seas of darling toddlers line up after services to receive daily meals of a roll, an egg, a banana, and a cup of milk. Most people, if they are fortunate, live in a 10 by 10 foot tin box with minimal furnishings, and yet when asked what they wish most of all, most say it isn't more food, clothing, or electricity, but their deepest wish is to rejoin family who has been fortunate to immigrate to Israel, but the families are still separated. They have deep tikva, they have deep hope to one day live in Israel. I was reading of a recent rabbi's trip to Addis Ababa and Gondar by a rabbi and scholar named Richard Hidari. His eyes were enormously opened to the plight of Ethiopian Jews. These are our brothers and sisters. He writes that since 1991, that year I happened to be there visiting the Acculturation Center, thousands more members of Beta Israel have made Aliyah, upwards of 55,000. We think the total Ethiopian Jewish population in Israel is somewhere around 180,000 people. A statistic that blew me away is that it is estimated that 73% of Ethiopian Israelis who have arrived since that year I was there, 73% enroll their children in religious schools, much higher than the national average. They are devoted to Torah and halachic practice. They serve with distinction in the IDF. They volunteer in combat units that engage in some of the most difficult fighting. They are just 2% of the total Israeli population, but since October 7th, Ethiopians have counted for a disproportionately high ratio of IDF deaths, somewhere around 5%. There are heroic people working on behalf of the remaining Ethiopian Jews. And one scene that I found particularly moving in Rabbi Dr. Hidari's piece is because they were there just a few weeks ago. He writes, "We are in a difficult time. The Israeli government and the religious leaders are dithering. It's really no other way to put it. I'm sorry. Far too long. As lives ebb away and years pass, the delay in processing claims is unconscionable and difficult to explain, although we might assign some motivations to it that are less than honorable. But we need to overcome and rise above. These good people want to make Aliyah, and we have to make Aliyah as a Jewish people to help them to do so. We need to rise above." Dr. Hidari writes, "While they wait, the least we can do in our own communities is ensure that none of these children lacks basic needs and that no woman should suffer 4 miscarriages." One of the Chazanim there confided to him about his wife, because she has no access to prenatal care. There are organizations that are working very hard. The one that I've supported for years is the North American Council on Ethiopian Jewry, and there is another called the Struggle to Save Ethiopian Jewry. They are very fine organizations, but unfortunately that one, the SSEJ, has recently cut 4- and 5-year-olds out of the daily feeding program due to a lack of funding. So it can now serve only pregnant and nursing mothers and children up to 3 years old. The Jewish people can and must do better. This was the scene that moves me. It's all so moving, all of it. But this particular notion, Rabbi Hidari wrote that as they headed back to Addis Ababa for the trip back home, one scene from Gondar stuck with him. Dozens of men scrubbing down rolling pins, rolling out dough, transferring the flat discs to the female bakers, who placed each one on a wood-burning injera grill, all within 5 minutes, to make 150,000 matzahs for what they boast, rightfully, as the world's largest Seder, 2 weeks ago for 5,000 people, each individual waiting too long to leave their exile and make it finally to the promised land. Please, my friends, if there is a cause that we can support that is and should be apolitical, that is all about rescuing our dispersed brothers and sisters who want to come home, please remember the Jews of Ethiopia and help to bring them home. I'd like to close today by reading a poem and then letting you experience some of it. This is a poem by Orit Tashoma. She is a poet, a musician, and a performance artist. She was born in Nazareth to Ethiopian Jewish parents, and she writes this extraordinary poem that describes some of the tension between the beauty and piety of Jewish life in Ethiopia and the struggle to acculturate, as those beautiful people were doing so long ago in the land of Israel. I'm going to let you hear it in Hebrew and Amharic in just a moment. I'll read some of it for you so you know what she's saying. She's extraordinary. She says, "The difficult hair, the stretched skin, the rhythm in the shoulders, the buna coffee with mom in the afternoon, welcoming guests, visiting the sick, nutritious food, the magic in the feet, shaking hands with 2 hands, the art of patience, the devotion, respectfully bowing to the elders, the courage of the youth, events with thousands of people that come to console or to make happy for nothing in return. Oh, Mother, heritage of Beta Israel, apologies. I almost forgot to leave you some room. You see, my identity has fallen captive to the daily wars. What exactly do they know about us? After all, it's only Ethiopia. God of Israel is witness that for 2,500 years you have been our refuge. How have finally arrived? How did we survive? We did not forget Jerusalem, eh? But quite quickly I forgot you. Look, it's not as if I'm going back. You know that. Ein li eretz acheret. I have no other land. Israel is the one. Let me ask for forgiveness, my mother Ethiopia. I cannot really pay you back. My mother Ethiopia, apologies. I almost forgot to leave you some room, so let me write to you instead." Grateful to Cantor Andy for sharing this video of Orit Tashoma. Let her speak for all of Ethiopian Jewry, and let us remember we are one family.
שיער הקשוח, האור המתוח, הקצב בכתפיים, קפה הבונה עם אמא בצהריים, הכנסת האורחים, ביקורי החולים, אוכל שמזין, קסם ברגליים, לחיצת יד בשתי ידיים, אומנות הסבלנות, ההתמסרות, הקידה למבוגרים, האומץ שבצעירים, אירועים עם אלפי אנשים שבאים לנחם או לשמח בלי תמורה. הכיר את המורשת ביתא ישראל, סליחה. כמעט שכחתי להשאיר לך מקום, תראי, זהותי נפלה בשבי מלחמות היומיום. האירוניה שביתא ישראל כבר בבית של גזיה ורמלק ישראל עוררה בי מבוכה. עד שמצאתי את עצמי מתעטפת בשרידי האמונה, עד שתחלוף לה עוד סערת הכפשה או גחמה של פרופסורים לפקפוקים שתכלס מה בדיוק הם יודעים עלינו. הרי זו רק אתיופיה ואלוהי ישראל עדים ש2,500 שנים את היית לנו למקלט. איך בסוף הגענו? איך שרדנו? לא שכחנו את ירושלים, אבל די מהר שכחתי אותך, תראי. זה לא שאני חוזרת. את הרי יודעת שאין לי ארץ אחרת. ישראל היא האחת. אך אדם השוכח עברו יעשה טעויות כל ימי חייו, ואני נתתי לכל מי שרצה להגדיר את זהותי, הלא העוול בכפי, עד שחלומות של אבות אבותיי לופפו סביב קרסוליי, שאבו אותי אל קרקעית הנפש, מצופים של דיכוי ממסדי וסטטיסטיקות, ניסו לעוות לי את הרגש, אבל לא לסתם קוראים לנו ג'גנה, רק האמיצים יעזו לצלול אל תוך השקט בשקט, אל עבר הספינה שננטשה, רק שם מצאתי את אוצר הנחמה, ונשבעתי שאני מעדיפה למות פיראטית, מאוד מכונה. רק רגע לפני שאני יוצאת לדרך, תני לי לבקש סליחה. הכרת יננת אתיופיה, לא באמת אוכל להחזיר לך בחזרה. מהשיער הקשוח עד האור המתוח. הקצב בכתפיים, קפה הבונה עם אמא בצהריים, הכנסת האורחים, ביקורי החולים, אוכל שמזין, קסם ברגליים, לחיצת יד בשתי ידיים, אומנות הסבלנות, ההתמסרות, הקידה למבוגרים, האומץ שבצעירים, אירועים עם אלפי אנשים שבאים, באים, לנחם או לשמח בלי תמורה. הכרת יננת אתיופיה, סליחה, כמעט שכחתי להשאיר לך מקום. תני לי לכתוב לך במקום. תודה רבה.
The different world, and yet absolutely one. Something we can do to help heal some of the wounds of our extraordinary, tiny Jewish family. Thank you for caring. Shabbat Shalom.